In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the internal components of a desktop PC system. Now, when we do this, we're just going to visually identify them. We're not going to spend a lot of time explaining how they work or what exactly they do. We're going to cover that in other lessons. With that, let's take a look at the inside of our PC system. The first component we're going to look at here is called the power supply. This you see right here is the power supply. It converts AC power from the wall into DC power that can be used by the components in the PC system. This big dark colored area, the black area underneath here, into which everything plugs in, is called the motherboard. The motherboard is kind of like the heart of the PC. It contains all the wiring that's necessary for the different pieces to communicate with each other. Now, you might hear the motherboard referred to by a variety of different names. Some folks will call it a main board, others will call it a motherboard, some will even call it a planer. If you hear any of those terms, we're talking about the motherboard. The next component is the CPU or processor. What you see here isn't actually the CPU or processor, it's underneath. What you're seeing here is the CPU fan and heatsink. If I were to remove them, however, then you can see the actual CPU. This right here is our CPU. Now, CPUs get really hot, so to keep them cool, we use a fan and heatsink to dissipate the heat. The next component you need to be familiar with is the memory. These right here are memory modules that are inserted into these memory slots. The memory is where the CPU or processor stores the applications and data that it's currently working on. The next component you need to be familiar with are the expansion slots. Now over here you see a series of expansion slots. PCs are customizable and they're modular. If you want a PC to perform a particular function, you can purchase an expansion board and install it in one of these expansion slots. For example, in this system we have a very nice high-end video board installed into an expansion slot. We also have some long-term storage mediums. The problem with RAM or memory that we have here is that it isn't persistent. When the system's shut off, the contents of these memory modules are lost. To save data long-term, we have to have long-term storage devices. Right here we have a hard disk drive. This drive stores data magnetically on a spinning disk. It can be written to or it can be read from. In addition, we have a floppy disk drive, which is kind of hard to see, but it's mounted in the system case right under here, and it's got a cable coming out that connects it to the motherboard. The floppy disk drive allows you to insert a floppy disk in and save a small amount of data on a removable piece of media. In addition, we also have our DVD or CD drives. In this system, the DVD drive is implemented right here. You're seeing the back end. You're probably familiar with the front end where you have the tray that comes out where you put the disk and close. This is what it looks like from the back. It's got a power connector and a cable that connects it to the motherboard as well. Now, all of these long-term storage devices, our hard disk, our floppy disk, and our DVD drive, have to connect in some way to the motherboard. In the old days, we used to have to actually install an expansion board in an expansion slot, provide an interface for each of these different devices. Most motherboards come with these interfaces built in. For example, this hard disk drive uses what we call an SATA interface and connects to the motherboard right here. Our floppy disk drive right here connects with a ribbon cable to a floppy disk connector here on the motherboard. Our DVD drive connects using this red cable right here to an ATA connector on the motherboard. You should be able to open up any PC system and immediately point out the power supply, the processor, the expansion slots, or the hard disk drive.